I'm extremely honored to be here. I'm very, very thankful for the iSupportHER movement. I'm Tamiko Lowry Pugh, the founder and executive director of the Still Standing Alliance, where we focus on domestic violence advocacy, awareness, and prevention. So let me just tell you a little bit about how I got to this point. July 7th of 2007, I woke up in the middle of Interstate 85 with cars swerving around me, trying not to hit me, literally. Just moments before that, I was in a car with my ex-husband, who was very abusive at the time, and we were driving up Interstate 85, and I said, "I'm leaving you today." And he said, "B, if you leave me, I'll kill both of us." And so he proceeded to force us in a car accident. We ended up on the side of the road where he began to beat me and strangle me until I was unconscious. The next thing I knew, I was laying in the middle of the interstate, literally with cars swerving around me, blowing their horns, trying, to prevent from hitting me. He was arrested on that day. Someone saw what happened. They called the police. He was arrested on that day. And that was the day that I became a survivor. That was the day that my journey of domestic violence awareness began. One of the things that I said was, "God, if you get me out of this situation, I will spend the rest of my life advocating and bringing awareness to domestic violence." And helping other women who are going through the same thing. And so I share my story not for a pity party, but I share my story because I don't know who's in the audience. Statistically, 1 in 4 women are victims or will be a victim of domestic violence. And so if you look around at each table, there's about 8 people at each table. So that means 1 person at that table or 2 people at your table actually have been a victim, or they know someone who has, or they've been affected by it in some way. So that's a lot. Domestic violence is the leading cause of homelessness for women in the United States. I was homeless. I slept in a car for 6 months. People didn't know that because I would still get up and I would get dressed and I would go to work and do everything that I had to do. Financially, 99% of domestic violence victims stay because of finances, and that's why I stayed. I left a 7-bedroom home to live in a 1-bedroom apartment and sleep on the floor with my 2 children on an air mattress. I was evicted 3 times that first year. So I get a little choked up with it sometimes, but that's the reason why I do what I do. Because I know what it's like not to have a support system. I know what it's like not to have anyone to go to. The shelters are full. Your friends are like, "Well, that's your fault. You kept leaving, you kept going back, so there wasn't a support system there. I didn't know where to go." And so I launched the Still Standing Alliance. And we help women to rebuild their lives after abuse. We help women who are currently in those situations to put together a domestic violence safety plan. So I said safety plan. When I left my abuser, I said, "I'm leaving you today." The day that you try to leave is the day that it gets worse, and that's when a lot of women or domestic violence victims end up dying. And so that's the number one thing you don't do, is say, "I'm leaving you today," because they feel like they've lost all control and now they're really upset. And so we help women to put together domestic violence safety plans. We have a domestic violence survivor empowerment program that the women can go through once they've left that situation. So that domestic violence empowerment program encompasses financial literacy, rebuilding your finances after abuse. We have self-esteem classes on career progression, how do you write a resume. So anything to help them to rebuild their lives after abuse. And we meet once every other month. Once they get done with that specific program, then they're allowed to be they become a survivor ambassador for our annual Purple Affair plug, which is happening next Saturday on October 6th. We're having our Still Standing and Stepping Out Purple Affair, where we celebrate domestic violence survivorship and we honor the community leaders and advocates who serve them. But that is why I founded the Still Standing Alliance, literally to help other women who are going through what I survived, so that they wouldn't have to suffer in silence the way that I did, and then they can have a support system. So that's why the iSupportHER campaign is so important to us. We're not funded by the government. We are literally grassroots, bootstraps, literally in the streets, and people don't see the behind the scenes. Last night I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning trying to place a victim in the shelter because the shelters were full. And so they don't see the behind the scenes, and we do a lot of work. Again, we're not funded by the government. We're just now starting to get in grants, but this iSupportHER campaign will help us to fund our domestic violence survivor empowerment program. So thank you again.
I'm Becky A. Davis, the founder of the iSupportHER movement, and we invite you to join the movement and take the challenge, the virtual challenge. Go to www.isupportherchallenge.com and let the world know that you support other women.